Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and it's time for my final review of the JC&P most recent version of their light, which includes a 24/7 mode, and this handy-dandy little remote right here. So let's talk about the basics of this light, the testing I've done, and my final impressions when we're considering the fact that this is a budget light. So stay tuned, and we'll go over all the details you need to know, and whether or not this is going to be good for your aquarium. We've had two different JC&P lights, one at 20 inches, which was the wrong size for this tank, a 29-gallon, and then the 28-inch, the correct one that the folks at JC&P sent me after reaching out saying, hey, you've got the wrong size light. Can we send you the right one just so you can see the difference? And as you can probably tell by what's going on in the background, I've figured out a way that I like setting it up aside from using the 24/7 mode. Now, in the previous videos, which will come up in the corner up here, we'll go over the initial impressions and then the 24/7 mode in much more detail. But let's do a short summary. The nice part about this light, other than the fact that it has a remote, it comes with a couple extra things, is that it's got a nice metal body, it's got good color spectrum, and it's pretty well constructed. Like I've said, I've spilled some water on this a few times, and so far it's done just fine. It has a built-in 24/7 mode with a remote, just like the Phoenix lights do, and frankly a lot of lights nowadays do. The ability to select your own color, and a couple other neat effects like a storm or cloudy day. I don't really fall for most of those gimmicks, but the ability to adjust the spectrum through here, that's a little more up my alley, as you guys know. 24/7 mode is something that is useful. A lot of people really like it because it's just a set it and forget it. You hit a button, you walk away, it does everything for you. I personally do not like 24/7 modes because they have light continuously. There's no downtime, and I'm not controlling the spectrum the way I want it. I have to rely on the fact that whoever created that program made a really good spectrum that represents a day sim, basically put. It's going to simulate a day somewhere. Overall, though, the 24/7 mode on this tank did a good job. It wasn't so bright that I had tons of algae, and at the nights, it is a low enough amount light that it's not causing too many problems. But in general, I found a setting I like a lot more. So we tested that by using a bunch of plants over here. We'll also bring up some shots just so you can see now. So at first we have a Broadleaf water Sprite, which, I mean, you can even see it without being in the close-up of the tank here. But it's just converted very well. It was grown floating, so it looked all sorts of different. It's converted well. There's a few holes from the plecos chewing some holes in it. But otherwise, that plant's doing phenomenal. Beside it, there's some baby tears, not the dwarf variety. This is the stem version. And then also some creeping Jenny, which those are both doing very well. You'll see in a second, a shot will change angles, and you'll see the creeping Jenny has new growth. It's doing great. The only one, the plant that has been knocked down several times by those same plecos, is some Liliopsis brasiliensis or microsword. That one's had a little bit of trouble in this tank. And frankly, I think I just need to get it out of the pot and put it in a tank with some CO2 to kind of resurrect it. But I don't think it's the fault of this tank and or this light. I think it might be that the rainbows or the plecos kind of picked on it. And yeah, so I'm not gonna outrightly say that it's a fault of the light, because all the other plants are doing so well that it's hard to think that that particular plant is being troubled by the light. Now, before I dive into like my kind of final setup, I do want to mention one thing that came in from a viewer. So on the last one where I did the review of the 24/7 mode and then talked about the 28-inch light when that arrived, I got a comment from somebody called Emma Tour. I see what you did there. But importantly, this person also followed up on this comment with a bunch of pictures. So I'm going to read that comment, and while I do, let me put up a little slideshow of pictures of their two 20-gallon longs, both using the JC&P light after my very first video on this light. And you can see someone other than me showing just what this light can do. So Amateur told us that they bought two JC&P lights based on the first video, and they were homegrown Canadian, so it's up in Canada. Both tanks are using a Fluval Stratum and Echo Complete mix with a gravel overlay. fertilized using the lean EI dosing of macro and micro fertilizers. The light was set on about 50% with only the white and reds for 6 hours, no blues. Started with some typical Hygrophila siamensis 53B, Rotala hra, Vallisneria, AR mini, so Alternanthera reinekii, some crypts, all from established tanks grown under low-tech conditions with a different fluval lights, both the 2.0, the 3.0, and a spec. So that's one of the small pre-done kit. About 2 weeks after the setup, added some tissue culture plants, more crypts, Ludwigia palustris, Ludwigia arcuata, Limnophilia sessiliflora, Hemianthus micranthromoides. Wow, I messed that up bad. It's been set up for a month and a half, and no algae, and the plants are growing slowly but healthy. Colors are a little subdued for the AR Mini, but healthy leaves at this setting, and the Rotala hra is more green, even with some nitrate limitation, which nitrate limitation, for those that don't know, will help push more red colors in a lot of plants. The Ludwigia arcuata has a slight orange tip to it, the palustris has a tinge of red, but it's only been about a month for these last tissue culture plants, so they still have a little bit of time. He likes to grow them slow, so he doesn't have to trim all the way. This is the Felipe Oliveira style approach, as Amateur mentions, and hopefully to avoid algae. All this to say, the light's price, this is a quote, this is the last line I want to be very important. This is from Amateur, not from me. This is someone who bought this off my first video and has experimented since. All this to say, the light's price, functionality, and your reviews, referencing me, are what encouraged me to buy. So thank you, I am satisfied so far. And then a note of sorry for the detail, which, this is one of the longer comments I've ever had, but it's awesome. So I hope you can see exactly what I'm talking about. On a 20 long, the same length, but not quite as tall, using this light, this is a great light. And started at only 50%, so not even blasting full power, and keeping the blues down and only using red, so no green light. I'm sure some of those settings have changed a little bit, but there's a real-world example from someone other than me that can show you just where this light can be pretty awesome. And if you ask me, the tanks look great. The colors might not be perfect, but those perfect colors come from high CO2 and extremely powerful light typically, along with some nutrient screw-arounds like the nitrate deficiency kind of stuff that you do to enhance reds and stuff like that. But more importantly, it's just a good, healthy tank getting slow, steady growth so that it's easier to maintain, but still looks great. And personally, if I had both those tanks, I would be very, very happy to have them. They look fantastic. So, Amateur, nice work. You're no amateur. I think you deserve a little upgrade in the name. So that being said, what is my kind of final setting on this light, and what am I doing to really take advantage of this light, given that I'm not a fan of the 24/7 mode? Well, the way that I am getting the most out of this light all comes down to one of these. A smart plug. These specifically are the Casa smart plugs by TP-Link. I'll have a link in the description to these for those of you who might be thinking about trying them. There's a bunch of different people that have talked about these recently. I have a bunch of them on several different tanks, and as soon as I was done doing my 24/7 mode testing, this immediately went onto this tank with a 28-inch light, and I kind of tinkered with my settings until I found what was working best for me for plant growth. And while it's been a shorter time than usual, I'm pretty good at eyeballing it at this point when it comes to my lights and kind of understanding like what's going to do best. But that being said, this is a little opinionated. It doesn't have the full scientific backing that most of, well, scientific, I'm not a scientist, let's be clear, but I do as much as I can from a professional standpoint, given that I do testing for a living. So here's my setting. I'm going to take our little remote just to demonstrate. 24/7 mode, kick that bad boy out the window. I want my whites at maximum, my reds at maximum, my greens at maximum, and my blues at 5 ups from nothing. So that's about halfway. They go to about 10 roughly. I think it might only be 8, but still. 5 up. And that gives what we're looking at right here in this tank behind me, which to me is a good color cast. And keep in mind, this setting is specifically for this 29-gallon tank with a 28-inch light. Each tank, based on its height, is going to be a little different. If this was a 20 long, I wouldn't be at full power in white, green, and red. I would bring that down a little bit, as well as the blue, because it doesn't have that extra distance for the light to travel, and we could be really, really overbearing the plants and causing algae if we were to go at full power on a shallow tank without some like really incredibly dense plants and probably a lot of CO2. Then with my smart plug, I have the lights come on at 8 a.m. and they run until 7 p.m. So we're getting 11 hours of light, and that might seem like a lot, but in general I have found that I can even go to 13 or 14 hours if I want to, but given that there's summer and there's some ambient light coming into this room, I only want 11 hours of pure light, and they get a little bit of ambient light through the rest of the night. It seems to work good. It gives my fish a nice rest time, and as you can tell, the plants are doing pretty good. So there's kind of my tip. What I would say is set up that kind of custom setting, set it on a Wi-Fi light timer where you can program it with your phone, have everything set up. I mean, you could even monkey with it where certain days it came on earlier if you really wanted to. I personally don't suggest that. Just do it the same the whole time. That it'll help the fish a lot. But in the end, let's talk about my kind of final review on this light. Do I think this is the best of the budget lights I have played with so far? I think that I get slightly more power out of a Beamswork light, but the amount of control that I have once I can play with the settings and then add a smart timer, which admittedly, when you get a Wi-Fi timer, you're adding extra costs, about $15. You can get some of the cheaper Wi-Fi timers for between $7 and $9. I like the nicer ones just because they're built by companies that are a little more reputable. I work in software, I get paranoid about certain things. You're going to have to excuse me on that. But basically, when I can combine those two, I get a lot of control, and more importantly, I can use that one Wi-Fi timer to control lots of lights. So I can put an entire room worth of lights if I really wanted to, or an entire wall, all on the same timer with one power strip, and then all the lights come on and off at the same time. In this case, I'm doing one timer just to this tank, purely for testing purposes. The other tanks that are in the room, whether it's over there or over that way, they have their own timers, they're set their own way. That's just a matter of where they're placed and how long they've been in place. Otherwise, they would all be on the exact same timer. And honestly, I think that this light is really good for its price. Now, I haven't tested every budget light out there, so I'm sure somebody's going to be like, well, what about this, and what about that, and what about this? But let me give you the comparisons I'm used to. This is against several of the Beamswork lights, both older and current versions, where there's EA, DA, or some of the other various F-spec lights. This also is against the Pawfly smaller lights, as well as the Phoenix Stingray 1, not the Stingray 2. And there are a few other budget lights that are random, like Chinese knockoff lights that don't exist anymore, as well as lights that should be considered budget that actually cost quite a lot that you'll find in places like a Petco or a PetSmart. I'm not going to name them because you know what I'm talking about, because nobody really likes to buy those lights, or they accidentally bought them. And then also comparing this to things like the kit lights inside of, say, like a Fluval Flex, for example. I think that this actually is just really, really good, especially if we're looking at something 29 gallons or smaller. If we start getting to broader tanks, like 40 breeder style tanks, where they're actually quite wide, I think we'd start losing some of the punch on this light as far as what it can do, because its light coverage is not super wide, but it's good enough for a tank like a 29, a 20 long. A regular 20 high would also be great with this light. I think the smaller versions are going to be good on a 10 if you're trying to do that. Although personally, I would get like one larger light and do multiple 10s on one larger light and just kind of run it across the top. I think you could do really, really well with this particular light, doing setups like that. I would consider this, like, even at my current custom setting, in the like medium light spectrum. Not quite high light, but this is good enough if you wanted to do low CO2 with some kind of beginner and a medium plants. I wouldn't go with like really hard advanced plants that need very high light and very strong CO2. This is not the light for that setup. However, for most of us, especially if we're going to do like a more simple planted tank like Java Ferns and Pogostemon, or a little bit of basic Rotala, Ludwigias, this lovely water Sprite or water wisteria, and you want to do some Anubias and all that kind of stuff, and you just want to have like a good Tetra tank, or even a smaller dwarf rainbow fish tank, this is actually a pretty good light. I've been pretty impressed by it. And I think what is noteworthy is that the company is up in Canada, so they're a little closer. It's not purely Chinese made. Again, a lot more quality paid attention to the body from what I can tell. I haven't completely ripped this thing apart, and I don't intend to. But overall, I think it's a very nice light, especially given the more entry-level cost point that this light is. It's a budget light, and that is really, really great. Now, yes, there are different budget lighting solutions. Someone is going to beat me up in the comments and be like, you can get XYZ shop light or something like this, and it only costs $20. Why are you calling that budget? I want to stress that when I look at lighting, I'm looking at lights specifically designed for the aquarium. And the reason why is because most of us out there in the aquarium hobby are going to go buy an aquarium light. We're not going to look at like the Costco shop light and go, that right there is my aquarium light. That's usually somebody is trying to like light multiple tanks on a rack on the cheap. If you're building like a massive fish room and you're not really worried about a nice planted display tank or something like that, like this here where you're trying to make the fish look good and the plants do really well, you're going to go that other route. You're going to go cheap. But if you're looking for a nice light that isn't going to break the bank, you don't want to go all the way up to like a Fluval, but you want something that still looks pretty nice, and it's going to cost you somewhere between $30 and about $60 shipped to your house through Amazon, it would be hard to pass up on this light. I'm not going to lie. Given my experience, I like this more than more expensive lights I have played with. Like that Phoenix light that I originally tested with. Yeah, it's brighter, but you know what? I like the control I have on this light a little better. And I like the fact that this actually is just that touch less light because I'm less likely to have an algae outbreak in my tank. Let's say I do a big trim on my plants, or I do a major restructuring of how my plants are. That's where I'm going to end up having a really high chance for an algae outbreak with that more powerful light. With this JC&P? No. Very unlikely for me to have any outbreak like that. Now I have some small dust algae on this Anubias, because for a while these extra plants weren't in the tank. So it was just kind of these Anubias sucking up all the nitrates in the tank. That's a lot of work for that poor plant that's a very low demand plant. But as soon as these other plants got in there, the algae has drastically gone away, and the light's just kicking, and they're doing great. Healthy plants, good looking fish. That's probably the best testament to a good light. And not just from me. We have those pictures from Amateur to other really good looking tanks. All with a JC&P light. So, that's it. I hope you appreciate this video. If you do, give it a little like, maybe even share. Drop a comment down below. Let me know. Now that I've given you my final review, what interests you the most about this light? Maybe you just want to try the light timer and see how that works with stuff that you have. Let me know down below. Comment pretty much anything that regards to what we've talked about so far in this series of the JC&P light. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you all have to say. If for some reason you are watching this video and you're going, that information was really helpful, and you're not subscribed to this channel, man, just give that subscribe button a little love taps. Get a little aggression out from being isolated as a human malware for so long. And then look at that bell and ring that bell for the final round. You've won, you're done, you're in, and you're not going to miss a video going forward, whether it's talking about equipment like this, how to do fantastic with plants, rainbow fish, and all sorts of other things. You're not going to miss a single video. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome. Well, there you go. Oh, you're fine. No. The cat meowed at me. So, I really hope you guys have enjoyed the kind of deep dive into the JC&P light. Again, I really want to thank the folks at JC&P for providing me with the 28-inch light to test and play around with after having the 20-inch, which was provided by Carrie Pitt, one of the viewers. Thank you so much, Carrie. Just in general, I want to thank all the folks, whether you're members or on Patreon. You guys have been fantastic. We've had a recent member video come out to you folks, And the channel's actually due for some more emotes, so be looking for a poll for what we're going to make those emotes from, and I'll go get some art done. I think one of them's probably going to have to be Papa Limo. Maybe even two. Who knows? And beyond that, just thank you guys so much. I know that this is a really trying time for a lot of people, and for those of you who are willing to pitch in even so much as $1 on top of all this, like, I really, really appreciate it. It's very humbling, especially in, like I said, times like this. You don't have to. Like, honestly, if you're struggling, don't. Please don't. Take care of yourself first. Just watching the videos, leaving a comment, all that kind of stuff, being the amazing people that you are, is all that that really is necessary to help the channel grow and help it do well. So, again, thank you so much to all of you. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this. And as always, stay awesome. The battery's running out. I barely got in there. My cat's looking at me funny because I'm being completely nutso.